So everybody here, I just wanted to first and foremost welcome Mr. Mike Burry. Thank you, Mike, for joining the webinar today, man.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.
So for those of you that, well, I'm sure nobody knows this actually, Mike has been one of like the OGs of Edufy/CoachNow. I've known Mike for a long time. He was a super early adopter of our platform. I even flew out to Dallas one time and hung out with him for a few hours watching him coach. And for those of you that aren't aware, I think Mike is definitely one of the most innovative coaches in the game of golf, if not across other sports, because as long as I've known him, he's been doing things quite a bit differently, not only in his training protocols, because he had, and maybe Mike, if we get to this, we can, but it's a little off topic. But I think I was always really impressed when I saw you coach initially with juniors, how you were introducing other sports into the process. You were always forward thinking as far as technology. You were even putting your own sweat equity into building certain technologies. And I think all of that's kind of fed into a lot of the things that you're doing now. But Mike has blown up on social media over the last maybe 18 months. Maybe I'm a little bit off on the timing there. Is getting the accolades he definitely deserves across the board. But Mike, maybe for 60 seconds, couple minutes, you can kind of share what your current day-to-day, or sorry, pre-quarantine, let's be very specific, pre-quarantine day-to-day looked like, and then we'll talk about what your day-to-day looks like now. So maybe you can kind of cover both of those angles as a way to get to know you.
Sure. Yeah, I think that, the last probably 6 to 12 months from a coaching standpoint has looked very different for me, largely as a result of this social media following that's kind of built over the last, 18 months or so. So I spend a lot of time traveling. I do go up to New York, typically about once a month for a week, and go and teach up there.
Wow.
I just started going over to Chicago and teaching up there. So back right when all of this stuff started, I was in Chicago teaching. All of that has come from sort of the social media side of things. So it used to be that I'm based here in Dallas, and it used to be that all of my coaching was here in Dallas. Now, that's still the bulk of my coaching, but I am doing a lot of coaching, outside of, here in Dallas. So, I've been probably on more planes over the last probably, 6 to 12 months than I've been on, for a long while. Yeah. But it's kind of, it's created, CoachNow is the perfect platform for me in terms of I have students all over the place.
Right.
And, for me to effectively coach them, it's sort of the push and pull of being able to stay connected to them. And without, something like CoachNow, it would be almost impossible to do what I'm doing right now. In the situation that we're in right now, fortunately, I'm still able to stay connected to, the students that are able to do things. I've been a believer for quite a while that coaching at some point in time, will change, and it is changing and has been changing in terms of it's not, going to be, or it's not what it was in terms of, turning up to the driving range and an hour lesson at the country club.
Right.
And that certainly when I was growing up, I was lucky I had great coaches, but it was hard to access them outside of, private coaching time, whereas now obviously, in the situation that we're in and outside of that going forwards, staying connected with our athletes is, what's going to separate those that are improving and those coaches that are, having the most impact on their athletes.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people that are maybe first discovering CoachNow or even these webinars are, looking at technology as a way to deliver remote coaching, but not necessarily recognizing, at least with CoachNow for sure, that most of our usage is actually in the coaching session, and the remote aspect is a way to bridge the gap. Obviously now in today's current climate, everything is remote. Right. But I think there's the power of capturing what's important, those key learning moments in the session, so that you as a coach don't have to go home and send them later. And then there's also the power of staying connected in between. And I'm wondering for you, Mike, I think this kind of gets into a lot of the questions that come across my email or inbox is around the packaging. And we've all evolved the way that we price and structure our coaching offers over time. So maybe a good way to kind of kick off this conversation is kind of talk us through maybe some of the things you've tried and maybe where you've landed on now for some of the coaching offers and how you structure and price and all that, because that's where most people, I think, get hung up.
Yeah, I mean, that's the most difficult part, and that's, you know, that's where I've tried and failed the most, you know, and tried and failed again, and you know, keep repeating until you figure it out. And you know, where I've gotten to, you know, is always the balance between, you know, do I believe that this person is engaged enough to, you know, send me swings and that sort of thing? Like, how invested will they be in their own improvement? You know, am I, you know, pushing dirt uphill here, or will they be fully invested? And so there was always this balancing of, well, I think this person's going to use the program, you know, they're going to be all in, so I'll put them in a bucket, and then the other people I'll kind of, I don't know that they're going to be as fully engaged, so I've got different kind of programs for them. So, you know, where I've landed now is that every single person that I teach that gets on some type of program, they're all in terms of, it's not you're just getting private coaching and, you know, I'll upload your information into CoachNow. It's, if you sign up on a program, you're getting a combination of in-person coaching or private coaching, and that could be in person or it could be remote. And you're also getting access to me, you know, via CoachNow through video swing analysis and other types of communication in between lessons. And that's the only program I offer now.
And how are you, is there some sort of minimal time commitment? And then is it a, if it's a 3-month time commitment, are they paying all up front? Are they paying monthly? How, and you don't necessarily have to quote the prices per se if you're not comfortable, but it's more of just a better understanding of how you're getting people to buy in, I guess.
Yeah, no, and I'm totally fine with talking about the pricing. Yeah, it's, so I have 3 different levels, sort of like a, you know, a bronze, silver, gold. The minimum commitment is a 4-month commitment, and then they can go month to month after that. The one thing that I have, and like a 2-second background, you know, I've happened to do very well on Instagram, where I've got a lot of followers, and from that, you know, I've kind of built my own on-demand platform where, you know, there's exclusive content, and that's something that I've always, you know, chipping away at trying to build. So to get access to, you know, kind of the premium or the top level pricing and the top level programs, my students have to be a member of Mike Bury On Demand.
Okay.
They pay, so that's an annual subscription, but for my coaching programs, they pay by the month. So the first level, where they get 1 hour of private coaching, which if that's an in-person session, that's an hour session. If it's a remote coaching session, they can cut that up into 2 30-minute sessions. Okay. You know, and do that via either Zoom or FaceTime or whatever the case may be. And they also get unlimited video swing analysis. So throughout the month, they can send me their swings, you know, whenever they need to. I respond to those typically Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
And you've established that expectation, right? I noticed that on your...
Yeah.
And we'll for everybody kind of wondering, we'll get into the screen share bit in a moment. I just don't want to overstimulate your brains. I want everyone to be able to listen to what Mike's saying rather than pay attention to what's on the screen.
So, you know, that price... The video swing analysis program is a tricky one, and we may talk about that as we go along. But normally it's something that I charge $125 a month for, and so they can send videos for any part of the game. Fortunately, you know, I've built this library of content from creating so much content over the years that when somebody sends me their swing, I can analyze it. I do it right there in CoachNow, and then I'll either post the videos directly in there, or I'll post links in there to drills that I want them to work on. So I don't have to recreate any content. And so that's kind of all packaged in. The lesson rate is discounted a little bit. That's discounted a little bit. And so the prices range from, you know, the starting price at $250 a month up to somebody that, you know, is paying $625 a month. Right on.
And I think as everybody's listening, there's 2 really great parts that I kind of pulled out of that you know, example. And that would be, there's a commitment of some sort, right? You've established that there's a time commitment, because if you don't establish that, people are expecting such quick fixes these days, and they have in golf for a long time, and that's not realistic in any environment. And the other is they have to be a member of something in order to get the next thing. right? So if you created this lower tier opportunity, so for the lingo out there, there's a lot of people calling like offer stacking or an offer ladder or something like that. Some of that's complicated and complex, and you got to do a lot of the work that Mike has done to establish the ability to even do that. In his case, right, he's created a lot of content that someone can consume without him, right, in a really nice way. But that allows you guys all to kind of think about what could you do to have kind of an introductory offer, maybe something in the middle, and then something top tier. Any coach I've talked to that's trying to do something, I'm trying to get you to think about maybe a 3-tiered approach, and usually you're going to anchor right in that middle approach. Like that's where you're going to sell most of your subscriptions or products or something like that.
Right.
So how, maybe talk us through a little bit, the evolution, a little bit more of how you landed on that. And then I'm going to actually load your website while we do that.
Sure. Yeah. It's been like an interesting sort of couple of years. Spent a lot of time trying to figure this out. And I certainly, by no stretch of the imagination do I have this figured out yet. Still a work in progress. But for me, I started off basically building, my Instagram following with the intention of trying to get people into my golf schools. Didn't really have a plan as to what I was going to do. I just started creating content and putting some things up, and, not much was sticking. It was really slow. And then I created, and for the most part, I was just posting like images with captions and quotes and, that sort of thing. And
yeah,
very slow, very slow. And then I posted a couple of videos. I was, my buddies talked me into shooting some content where I was talking and golf tips and that sort of thing. And I started to build a little bit, and Instagram cuts you off at a minute. So I started a video series called Minute to Fix It. And I thought, this is it. This is going to be the one.
I remember that. Yeah. I remember when you came out with that. Yeah, I do.
So I started posting these minute-long videos, and what I didn't know is that nobody spends a minute watching a video on Instagram, or at least, at that point in time.
Yeah.
They did okay, and I was building a little bit, but, I was 500, 600, 700 followers and working hard and not really moving the needle much. And then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, one day I posted me chipping over the top of my camera or my phone in slow motion. And it's 5-second video maximum. And I did it right before a lesson, and I posted it up. And then all of a sudden during the lesson, my phone just started like lighting up. And, I looked at what was going on, and I, within minutes had 10,000, views on something that I'd never had 10,000 views ever.
Right.
So I was like, okay, maybe there's something to this, like, low camera angle stuff, short video content, short form video. And so that's when I started to get into posting tips that I could get up there that were under sort of 12 seconds, that sort of thing, that were different to what everybody else was doing. And, long story short, these short tips just kind of, they exploded somewhat. And that kind of, got my Instagram account going to where now, I think I'm just under like 99,000 or, but as the social media following grew, then I was like, well, what am I going to do with this?
Yeah.
How to, cause it's a lot of work, and I'm sure people, the folks that are on the webinar today are like, this sounds great, but I don't have the time to create content. I have to be out there teaching and doing the other things to run my business. And so this is something that worked for me in terms of building my following, but it doesn't generate, any revenue. Obviously, it's just time consuming. So as things were progressing, I was like, okay, I'm going to build my Mike Beery on demand and try and get people to subscribe to different content, longer format stuff. And even that has been, when people are online consuming free content, it's tough to move them to paid content.
Yeah.
So the biggest success that I've had in terms of getting people into my on-demand and that sort of thing is through the network that I teach right now. And for those that are watching today, you don't have to have thousands of followers on social media to be able to, do this sort of thing. If you've got an engaged network of clients that you work with right now, starting to create some kind of package for them
Yep.
that they can buy into. And it's, you don't have to, in order to create content, you don't have to, it doesn't have to be high production. It doesn't have to be okay, I'm going to go and spend the next couple of hours filming stuff. You know, the coaches that I've seen are saying everything they need to say in every lesson every day.
Mm-hmm.
All you have to do is turn the camera on.
Yeah.
And you're going to capture the best content that anybody's ever seen. And then all of a sudden you start to use that content in your CoachNow space when you've got a student that needs a speed putting drill, or, you know, once you've done it once, filmed it once, you can put that in anybody's space.
Right. And I think, you know, to kind of just pause for a moment there, I think, yeah, it's imperative that we all recognize that we already have clients or students or athletes, however you want to label them. And they, especially if you are in the world of golf, which I think most of the people on today's webinar are, they're hungry, right? And the reason why Golf Channel or Revolution Golf or any of these things, other things exist, is because your golfers are bored, right? I don't know if it's the same if you're a football kicking coach and other things like that, because there's not as much content. Well, actually maybe, yeah, they're equally as bored. They just have less outlets to attach to, whereas golfers have endless amounts. Right. So you might even have more of an advantage because they don't have anything else to even look at. But we're all familiar in the world of golf of your student coming up and saying, oh, I watched this on the Golf Channel. I read this in Golf Digest or whatever, right? But the reason they're paying attention to that, and I've said this for years, is because you're not providing them a way to interact with you beyond your personal time, right? The time that you interact with them in live, you know, coaching sessions. So you can do what Mike has done and create, you know, more of a video library that's hosted outside of CoachNow. And I would totally recommend that you do that. And then there's the other strategy where you can have kind of interactive learning community, like a group, so to speak, like a Facebook group, but we do it inside of CoachNow in a slightly different way. Mike's a part of the Golf Digest community that we partnered with, and he contributes in there too. So anyway, a little bit of a tangent, but I just want to make sure everybody kind of recognizes what Mike has done. And what he's saying is that you don't have to have, you know, if we scroll to the top, you don't have to have nearly 100,000 followers to do big things, right? And I think if you have a few hundred students over the time that you've ever coached, right, they still would probably want to interact with you. And I'll kind of jump back to a little bit, Mike, on what you said about these drills that you started putting up, you know, these kind of low camera things. Honestly, when you started doing it, it was zero surprise to me that would be a success, because one of the things I know about you, and when you were creating your software project that was all about gamifying practice and very specific drills, like you're super creative around the drills. So it wasn't surprising to me to start seeing these things come in and get a ton of traction, right? And that's kind of your niche, I think, better than most, is that you have all these innovative ways to practice and kind of fun ways to measure practice.
Yeah, it's just, you know, part of that is really the guys that I was involved with, you know, or grew up around. You know, I was lucky to grow up around some of the best teachers, best players, and you know, just about, and I'm sure there's many other coaches on the call today that are doing similar things. You know, we're problem solvers. So if we can do that in fun, interesting ways, then, you know, we get good results, and it happens to work well on social. If I was starting out again, or if I was at zero, you know, Instagram, or didn't even have an Instagram account, what I would be doing is, and I actually have this on CoachNow, is I'd have, you know, my own community space, right. Putting content in there, and you're going to successfully monetize that in terms of introducing your current clients, you know, packaging it up in a way that when you get on a program, you're getting your private coaching. Maybe there's, you know, skill training classes or whatever the case may be, but I have my community platform inside of CoachNow. You know, you have your own space as well, and you're going to save yourself. I couldn't even imagine the time that I would have saved if I went that route.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that, because ultimately part of the reason I built the platform the way that I did, and we have a lot of innovation yet to come, but the way that we structured is that I was doing a lot of group coaching. That's kind of where I landed too, eventually, is thinking, okay, well, let's do pods of 3 or 4 kids, or let's do these golf schools, like multi-day golf schools with a mental coach and a fitness coach. You know, let's try to package this whole kind of train like a pro thing together. But ultimately, the biggest challenge I had is that I had all these great students out there, and they were out practicing at this particular facility that I coached at. But the only way that they knew that they worked with me was because they practiced a certain way. They were the only ones out there with alignment rods and doing drills. Everyone else was just kind of like whacking it and shanking it around.
Right.
So like, oh, you must work with Spencer, right? Because he's, super disciplined around how we practice. And so I was like, man, and this was pre-Instagram. This was pre-Facebook really being a place that you could even do this. It's like, I got to figure out a way to build this tribe, right? Get all these people together and get them playing golf together, get them communicating in some way so that, I'm building a stronger bond with my athletes and they're building one with them, with each other as well. You can't always do that on social media, traditional social media, because it's very distracted, right? And we all know that there's algorithms there that even though Mike's got a ton of followers, I may not see all of Mike's content. And I know for sure I don't, because I follow him and a lot of this stuff I've never seen before. Right. And it's like, I don't know, it's just going to disappear. So take what Mike said and kind of think about it in your own way, that there's no reason why you shouldn't do social media, but to interact with your current customers, people that are paying you or that may want to pay you again, try to bring them into a more private, focused environment, a distraction-free environment where there's no algorithms blocking them from seeing what you actually want them to see or what they're paying you for. Right. So, let's switch gears just slightly because we're already at 10:23. We're already kind of moving, or at least 10:23 my time. So I do want to scroll through a little bit of social, a little bit more, and then jump on your website. Then we'll take some questions. But I think we had a question here on kind of how you landed on this format, which seems to be working for you, right? You're getting good engagement, just even if I scroll on these things here. So you've got your video and you've got what I'm assuming is a tweet that you've then screenshotted and put in here. So how did you kind of land on this format? Because it is very appealing to the eye. And I think that's a big part of a successful Instagram account overall to get people to subscribe is ease of navigation, right? And just kind of ease of getting what you need.
Yeah, for sure. And I'd say like Instagram right now is tough. It's so crowded, just with everybody's creating content. But in terms of, how I came to this format, I certainly wasn't the first to do it. Others have been doing it before me. And I looked at it and I really liked how it kind of broke everything up, and it made it easy to post a little more content as well. So, like the second post from the sort of the top middle post right there where it says mental game. Yeah. So that's in a carousel. There's 3 different tweets, 3 different tips. And this one, people really love this sort of thing. They're tiny little small nuggets that might not be, connected. This is from yesterday, which I call Tea Time Tuesday,
But you're branding it, right? That's the cool thing, is that you're creating your own kind of strategy. And I think that's really important for everybody to hear, is that if you have decided that Tea Time Tuesday tips is a thing that you as Mike Berry are going to do, then at least every Tuesday kind of what you're going to post, right? And I think that's the struggle for all of us, is you sit in this blank screen and you're like, what the heck am I going to put on here today?
Right, exactly.
Right? Create some structure.
Right. So, this is the throwing the little tiles in there. It's just an opportunity for me to post some different types of content. It might be a quote from Ben Hogan, or it could be some of the really successful things that I posted up there. When I put up there sort of a how to break 80, how many greens in reg, how many putts, how many, 3 putts or whatever. It kind of blows people's mind when they're like, oh my gosh, if I hit, 7 greens, I can break 80. Like that's, and that's where you get people that are, they share it with their friends, they comment on it, they like it. And that all helps with engagement and getting it in front of, a bigger audience. At the same time, the images on Instagram don't do as well engagement-wise as videos do. So if you're only posting images all the time, it's not going to hit the explore page. It's not going to help you grow your channel, your profile.
It's a good point. I'm just thinking about the explore page right now, and most everything, if not everything, is a video now that you mention it. Yeah, that's a good point.
Exactly. Yeah. So, ultimately, if you're trying to grow your channel, your videos need to land there. Yeah. Which is basically Instagram promoting your post. And so, engagement is going to help that. So when it first comes out, the more people that like it, comment it, share it, that sort of thing, that's a sign to Instagram that it's a popular post. And then, you're a chance of it getting in the explore page. But the things that I've found that have worked well for me are the short form videos, things that are asking a question. Don't just, as opposed to just posting a video, have some kind of call to action or question in there. You know, it might be a slice tip, or it might be a grip tip. And, you know, what does your grip look like? It can be as simple as that.
But even here, right, like drive for show, agree, disagree, right? And you're getting, you know, a good amount of comments. You're getting people liking the other people's comments, right? You're building that engagement. But then to your point, like you said, it's like, okay, well, before we jump to your actual website, I think a follow-up question to all of this, right? Because people get, and I myself, because I'm running a company and trying to do all this other stuff at the same time, it's like, how much time is actually involved in managing and running even just this channel, right? It seems like a lot.
It's a lot. I mean, and I do it all myself. You know, there's a lot of other accounts that have people helping them, which, you know, if you could, great. The type of content that I post is a little time consuming because I'm not capturing it during a lesson. I'm not documenting, you know, I'm actually creating. But
others can, like, that's a suggestion that you made earlier. Like, that's how George Gankis has gotten so big. He's very rarely creating any unique content outside of his paywall content.
I mean, I think a great example is Mike Bender. You know, he's got
he's been doing great recently.
Ridiculous. He's got a great social account, and
he was doing nothing before. He went from a ghost to taking advice that I gave him, as well as many other people I'm sure gave him, said, like, Mike, just roll the camera, man.
Yeah, exactly. And for those that follow, you know, anyone that follows like Gary V, you know, he's all about, you know, documenting. And so if you're doing something like that, it's not as difficult because you're already teaching, you're already saying everything, just turn the camera on, and then you've just got to find the gold nuggets later on and post them up. I mean, you have to engage with your audience. You know, you have to reply to comments. It's not just throw it up and then, okay, I'm ready for my next post. It's when people start asking questions and commenting, you know, liking and replying back and that sort of thing. So it's, there's no way to sugarcoat it. It's for sure a lot of work.
But for you, right, because of the way that kind of your entrepreneurial mind works, you recognize that this is an investment, and you not having to be out in the sun on the lesson tee every single day of your life, you're creating some sort of leverage and some scalability to you. And eventually you probably will hire somebody to help you manage this, right? Because it's going to get beyond you probably as we come out of quarantine, right? There may be an opportunity to bring somebody on board part-time, right? To help you out.
And whilst this part of things is time consuming, it's made other parts much more streamlined. Like I said, I've got a bank of content now that I just, when I post something in CoachNow, I just find the file, whack it in there, and it's done. I don't have to create that content.
Great point. So let's jump to your website here, and let's be, if you're open to it, to be just a tiny bit critical if needed. And the reason why I say that is that we get tons of questions on how to structure your offer, how to market yourself from a website perspective, right? There is a pure example of just not even having a website, honestly, just having a social account and just pushing everything through DMs and integrating some sort of content, you know, CMS or any sort of content management or contact management system directly into social. You can do that. But if you are going to have a website, let's make sure it's the best it can be. So let's talk about, Mike, in your opinion, what's working, right? And maybe knowing what you know, what you may want to change, right? And you can tell me where to go, right, in any way.
Yeah, I would say, you know, the things that are working, I've got some pages in here that are similar, and you may not, I'll just try and think of how you can navigate to some of them. This is obviously the main page that I push people to for on demand.
Yep.
Those that are following now, those that I'm trying to convert directly from Instagram, you know, to on demand. So I'll, you know, once you get over 10,000 followers, you can add the swipe up, and that's what I, you know, throw in here and try and get people to come over. I don't convert as well as I should, or as well as I feel like I could. For those that are, you know, following on Instagram now, you know, for those that I teach that it's an easier sell, they, you know, they love it, but so I'd be definitely open to as much feedback as you've got on the sales page.
Sure. Yeah. So I think one of the keys is one, you're doing a swipe up and you're pushing people directly to this page, right? So they don't have the option or the confusion to have to go find what they need.
Right.
But at the same time, when they land here, they are seeing other things.
Right.
Right. So this is going to immediately lower conversion rates if you've given them the other things to think about.
True.
Right. So one of the things that I'm a big fan of is creating landing pages that have no other navigation.
Good call.
Right. So this can be there's no rule to say you can't have mikeberry.com and have, all these different things about yourself, but there's good opportunities to create landing pages that have no other call to action, no other distraction other than to just buy the dang thing.
Right.
Right. So as we create landing pages, like our corporate CoachNow.io, not my favorite, right? There's too many tabs. It's just, we don't get most of our customers coming through that way. We get it from a lot of other channels because we create separate landing pages per sport, per marketing campaign. So if we're doing any advertising, it's pushing somebody directly to a page where it's only about this. And the only other navigation button they have is to CoachNow, like headquarters, essentially, to know that CoachNow is a real company. And we're not just, trying to get their credit card information and scam them or something if they've never heard of us. So for anybody listening, and I think for you, Mike, that'd be one thing to at least try. Just remove all the other distractions.
Yeah.
And I would say for everybody, if you have a bigger website, just create lead pages that don't have any navigation. You've heard me say this all the time, because when you go to mobile, I don't know if this will translate as well. And this isn't folding down as well as some. So we want to make sure that everything is responsive. And this isn't a pure test on whether it's responsive on the phone. Just sometimes this is a test where you shrink up the window. But we don't want things high. We don't want key actions hidden behind a hamburger button, right? So I think, I haven't been this explicit before, but I think given that Mike has a really great looking site, it's got a lot of quality information. The advice I'm giving him is maybe some advice you all can take, is don't worry about rehashing your entire website. Just look at how to create separate pages with no other navigation. And maybe that's the place to experiment.
Yeah, no, I love that idea for sure. Because I do have something, one of the things that has worked really well for me, and I'm just going to try and pull up the link because you won't be able to navigate directly to it.
Okay.
One of the, having a big online following is great, but it's very much out of your control. If Instagram goes away, then, 100,000 people that I have contact with, or I don't have 100.
You don't have their email addresses, right?
I don't have their email addresses.
Exactly right.
And even with that, the 100,000 people don't, like you said, you don't see all of my posts.
Nope.
So, when I'm marketing to my audience, I'm not marketing to 100,000 people. So what I've been doing, there's, I don't know if there's an easy way for me to shoot you this link.
Maybe you can throw it in the chat. And then if you're open to anybody clicking on it, I can click on it too. And maybe that'll launch us here in the right way.
Let's see here.
So while Mike is doing this, I think, this brings up a super great point is, there we go. So I'll bring this up, is that it's great to have a lot of followers, but at the same time, they're not really your customers. And they're passive, right? So you need to convert all these people to get their real contact information, some way to stay in touch with them outside of this. So let's bring this up.
So this is a page that I created, and I created just a little simple PDF. We'll give it a second to load here. And
it's not liking the HTML. I'm not sure why.
Okay.
Shoot. But I get where let's talk through it even if it's not loading, because I get what you're trying to do here. Yeah,
so this is a landing page that, I put a call to action. I put a few images. This is kind of talking about some strategy and shot selection and what have you.
Yeah.
I forget how many pages there are. It might be 5-6 pages, pretty easy PDF that I created. And so when I put a swipe up link on Instagram saying, if you want more information on this, then you can get my downloadable PDF for free. So when they land on this page, then they have to fill out their information, and I use MailChimp, and it automatically sends them the PDF. I don't have to send it to them.
Yep.
But it's been a great way for me. I've collected a lot of email addresses that I then market to.
100%. And I was going to suggest the same thing. So I'm really glad that you're doing this, is that because I'm in addition to kind of running the day-to-day of CoachNow and doing all this stuff, I coach other startup founders and trying to help them kind of just launch their businesses, especially in the early days. And one of those key elements is to build your list. And I think that's what we've been so grateful for here at CoachNow, is that early on we were building our list, and we have a really big one now. Whether they're customers of ours or not, we still have giant marketing lists that we can hit from all these different coaches. So in order to do that, you got to probably give a little to get a little, right? So you got to create something that's appealing to them, give them a free gift. And even what Mike's doing here is great, because not only can he give them something of value ahead of time, Like, hey, just put this in, you're going to get this. He can also have another email that goes out from MailChimp if you wanted, with a link to your interactive community on CoachNow, right?
Exactly.
As a follow-up link, right?
Exactly.
Because now you're pulling them into a place where you can really control the conversation. And we're going to continue to really improve all of those features over the next 6 to 12 months for everybody. But I think it's like, how do you just kind of keep them going in the same, well, how do you keep them engaged, right? And you just want to keep offering them things, because eventually if you deliver a lot of value in the upfront, they will become a paying customer at some point because they're in your ecosystem.
100%. I mean, that's the whole thing. Like if the barrier to entry is low, then the rate of conversion is higher,
Yes.
And if it's as simple as, I mean, something like join my free newsletter, that people don't really, it's simple, it's easy, but most people are not going to sign up to it. Everybody's seen that before.
Well, in general, they don't want more emails either. Just
right.
Just that is the value. But if you have an ebook or a video series, even though it's delivered via email, it's like, it's still cool.
Yeah, exactly. So this helps me with that. I built a really good list that I then, sell my other stuff to. Not all selling, obviously. I'll send them other stuff along the way.
Yep.
But yeah.
I think the key is, right, you want to deliver. Well, I've brought up this group a couple of times. I'm sure, Mike, you're familiar with them, right? So I always bring up ClickFunnels as a great example in the world of online marketing. They sell around $100 million worth of product every year, a combination of software and coaching services. And whether it's on-demand stuff or whether it's live coaching events. And part of the reason I always bring them up is that they're consistently staying in touch with everybody and just adding value, right? And I had a conversation with a great coach yesterday about how do you price all these things, right? Because you don't want to compete on price, because there's no reason to be the second cheapest person in your market, because you might as well go all the way to the top and be the most expensive at that point, right? Because you can't compete on price. But you can say, hey, for $400, not only do you get this, this, and this, but you get this, 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 and this, right? There's no reason why you can't just add a bunch of value to a higher price point and make people feel like, that's why all infomercials are like, well, you buy now and you cross out all this stuff and you get this, this, and this, right? It works because people feel like they're getting a great deal, even though the price point is still, pretty higher than what they're used to paying.
Yeah,
but they get a lot of value.
Most definitely.
So Mike, you've kind of just really, I think, given us a great education. And so for the last few minutes, I want to be respectful of everyone else's questions. I know we've answered a number of them already, which is great. But let's talk just a really small mechanic, because this is a question that comes up. So as you're running your billing, maybe just talk us through the architecture of how you're doing that, right? So I go to here, I do join now. What payment processor are you using? What are you using to host the videos? Just some mechanical stuff for people.
Yeah. So for the on-demand platform, I'm using a platform called Uscreen.
Okay.
So it's a subscription service. I think it's about $150 a year that I have to pay, and it kind of depends on the size of your audience as well. And so when they click on that link, that takes them over to Uscreen's platform. My
so if I click the join now, it brings me, so mikeberry.uscreen, yep.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And so, I've got my Stripe account connected, and what have you to that. So they handle all the payments, the subscription. I don't have to connect anybody. It just, it's a sort of seamless login or whatever process.
And that's where all the videos are living, and they're organized in such a way that people can they comment within Uscreen or
yeah, they can. And you can turn that sort of feature on and off. And you can post up sort of standalone videos, or you can post up like a curriculum of, 10 videos, or, like a putting program, or whatever the case may be. Perfect.
So Stripe is always the one I recommend. It's internationally friendly. It's very easy. They have a lot of features. Square is also pretty cool. That's more for brick and mortars usually, but they do have a scheduling and billing component buried in there if anybody's kind of looking for that. Let's see. And then I think this goes around managing your time as you're selling these coaching packages. So specifically, we're talking about remote coaching. And even when we break out of this quarantine, there's still a big remote aspect to your business. And I think a lot of coaches are concerned about, just constantly getting hammered with questions and not necessarily monetizing that experience. I think you answered it a little bit by saying you set expectations ahead of time. But maybe, is there any other like quick tip that you can give for kind of level setting the expectations and making sure everybody's on the same page?
Yeah, I would say for sure, as you just said, make sure you set the expectations up front. But I would say of the people that I've worked with online, 99% of people don't abuse it.
I fully agree. And that's a question we get on CoachNow all the time. What if? And I'm like, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it across 140 countries, 60 plus sports. I haven't seen it.
Yeah. Honestly, like I go through my list of students, and if somebody hasn't posted, I post in their account so that they know that I'm looking.
Yeah.
And I'm doing more of that than like, oh, wish this guy wouldn't send so many swings.
Yes. And I think let's talk about that for a second, because I'm reflecting on a call I had yesterday again with that same gentleman about the coaching programs and everything else. So I think there's a big difference, and this would be maybe the only other thing that we would want to talk about in as far as the remote coaching side in just a second, like going through how you're selling it, and maybe you can direct me to the right page. But there's a difference between, online lessons and then, in my opinion, remote coaching or online coaching. It's the key word is the coaching part. It doesn't matter what you put in front of it. And the reason why is because there's a lot of people out there selling like unlimited swing analysis for $350 a month, but it's just literally drawing lines and effectively telling somebody how bad they are. You're not necessarily giving them a plan to improve for the next time around. Yep. And because you're selling at such a high volume, you're not reaching out to someone if they're not fulfilling their quota, right? If they're not actually participating, because you're doing it more like a gym subscription where you hope people don't actually show up, right? Because you just want them on the hook to pay and they hopefully forget about it, right? The people that usually use CoachNow are the people that I kind of vibe with are like yourself, where, hey man, somebody's paying you. You want to make sure they get the value. And you're going to remind them if you need to.
Exactly.
So maybe talk about the relationship part of this, because I think that's a big reason why you've been so successful, because you do value the relationship aspect.
Yeah. I mean, it's the perfect example. Like we just said, it'd be very easy to look through the list and, such and such hasn't posted. Great. Moving on to the next one. No, they haven't posted, moving on. But it's so simple to say, hey, I've seen you haven't posted anything lately. Have you been able to get out and practice, or whatever the case may be, so that they know that, you're engaged, that you actually care, that it's not just, kind of checking the boxes that you checked on their account or that sort of thing. And I think that's where the community CoachNow space is huge, from the point of view of you can post in there. You don't post it in everybody's account, or whether you just post to, your community page. It shows that you're there, and then you're doing it, and that that you care about your students, as opposed to throwing up a post and then a couple months later the post goes up. It's
exactly right.
And it could be any type of, it could be, it doesn't have to be perfect. You holding your phone, just wobbling all over the place, but to see, if you guys have done any putting speed drills this week, by the way, here's a leapfrog drill.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. So I think the relationship aspect is so huge, right? Because ultimately what you're trying to build is retention into your business. You don't want to have to go out and find leads, because even as Mike has described to all of us, right, he's got a ton of followers on social media, and it's still difficult to convert a good percentage of those just because you don't have a very intimate relationship with them yet, right? So you're going to get a small percentage of those people to actually interact and buy something from you. Right. So Mike, we've hit our threshold. I'm hopeful maybe you got another 5 to 10 minutes in you. Is that okay?
Good. Sure.
Just because there's so much good stuff here, and I don't want to cut it short for the questions that are still coming in. And I do have, if you can direct me to the specific remote coaching aspect of the site. Is it the No Boundaries side? Is it Online Academy?
Yeah, it's Online Academy, okay. which is where you are. And this is, I've tried. I kind of despise a little bit the word like online coaching. I try to not, I use it because that's what everybody's familiar with. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I'm trying to separate away from that familiarity,
totally.
Because it's, people think of it as a lesser product, as a lesser experience than the face-to-face. And obviously face-to-face is great.
Of course.
There's things we can do face-to-face we can't do remotely, but there's things that we can do remotely that we can't do face-to-face.
Very true. Very true.
I can't, have dinner tonight and then, work with 10 different people on their swings in person, but I can I can do that at any time. I can stay connected and I can see people at any time.
Absolutely. So I do think that's really crucial for everyone to pay attention to is we say remote coaching because, to Mike's point, people start to understand it. So it's easier for us to get people to go, oh, okay, let's talk about it. But there's opportunity for you to brand it in any which way you want to make it more cohesive or feel better for you and your audience. So let's look at the page, right? So I'm going to put my critique hat on just for a second, if you're open
Please.
to it, Mike.
Sure.
So one of the things that would be imperative is that, well, let me back up. Let's go back to what I said before, where you can create separate lead pages for every single thing that you want to offer someone, right? So a lot of times you don't need any clarity in your tabs because you're going to push someone to a specific page. But if you are pushing somebody to your main page, let's make sure that when they land on it, immediately, and you're saying, who is this program for? But immediately, why do I care about this page? And I think there's an opportunity to add more imagery or like little iconography or something just to kind of catch the eye, because there's a lot of text.
Yeah, way too much text.
And one of our earliest designers in CoachNow Edufy history, he's like, there's a big kind of belief, especially in digital marketing, that you need to let your eye rest. Like you need to let the eye needs to know where to go. And right now, I'm not sure where my eye should be going, right? Because there's a lot of text here.
Way too much, yep.
And the call to action is pretty low on the page.
Right.
Right. And the FAQs are great because you always want to kind of beat up objections ahead of time, right? You don't want people having to ask you a bunch of things. So FAQs are great. One of the things that I would always like to see, again, aside from less text in general, is sprinkle some testimonials in here, because people are going to buy more often if they just see other people doing it. That's why fitness coaches have such a big advantage on all of us, because they can do a before and after weight loss photo that kills it. There may be an opportunity to do a before and after backswing photo.
Yeah.
Like I was all jacked up and now I look like I'm really good, even though I might still be topping it or whatever. Right. So I think there's before and after opportunities. There's testimonial opportunities. We want to sprinkle those. And we also want to give people the opportunity to just click through because maybe they're ready to buy, right? So more CTAs. One of the guys that we worked with in the past as well, he has a marketing budget over $100 million a year. He works for this huge company. And he's like, where's your big effing button? Right.
Right.
And he's like orange button, because people for some reason click orange more than they do any other color. You can choose whatever color you want, honestly. But the big thing is you want to give people a lot of opportunities to just click through because they might be ready for it. Yep. And if they are not ready for it, then you keep selling, keep testimonials and other CTA, testimonials, FAQs, right? So you can even shrink up the FAQs and kind of sprinkle those without. So just some things to consider, right, along the way.
And I'd love your take on this, because this is a page that often I'll use, typically I'll use a swipe up link because I'm trying to recruit people from Instagram. So it's got the call, it's got the email, the MailChimp plug in there for people to, there's no pricing on this page. So I'm trying to collect their email address so that I know they're interested in it. But if you hit the hamburger menu and go to private instruction, which is really, it's the same. Like I said, my programs are all kind of the same. The information is in here, but it's got the pricing.
See, I like this right here. I like this.
Yeah. It's a little less wordy. It's still not perfect. And I'm kind of working on trying to improve that, but I'd love for your take on this versus the other page.
Yeah, this one immediately strikes me in a more positive way, just because the way that I can navigate this very easily. And think about if I'm on a phone, right? Everything is a scroll. Right. So if there's a lot of text, imagine on the phone, now it's even longer to get through before you get to the point. We've done a lot of study, at least on software as a service, right? Subscription services. And I think all of us on the call today are essentially selling a subscription eventually. That's what I want you to do. So hiding the pricing has proven not to be a good thing.
Right.
And the reason why is because people are like, I'm going to click this thing and then I'm going to get all excited and then it's going to be $10,000. Screw these guys, right? Right. So you want to make pricing as clear as possible. At least that's my opinion. You can still always have a customized priced option, which we still have at CoachNow as well. So we have free, paid, and then like a enterprise business category, right? Call us, because if you have 300 coaches, it's probably not going to be the same price, right? So I think as you're doing this, think about keeping the pricing ahead of people, which you've done great here. And then also just, it's okay if they want to call you and look at some sort of customized program. There's a lot of, like, we as CoachNow have sold an overwhelming amount of our licenses through 10-minute phone calls or 10-minute video calls.
Yeah.
So if you're asking somebody to pay you sight unseen $600 a month or something like that,
yeah,
that's hard, right? So think about if you're pushing people from Instagram, how cool would it be for all of those people to book a 10-minute call with you?
Right.
Right. And you can use Calendly or anything else and just mark off a certain chunk of your day. And you'll probably, for every 10 minutes you spend, your close rate will probably be somewhere between 70, 80%. And you'll recognize that those 10-minute calls are probably worth $600 for every 10 minutes.
And that's a great point. So what I've got right now, if you scroll down a little further for remote students, keep going. Yep, hold it right there. Get back up a little bit. Yeah, right there is good. Mm-hmm. The first, right underneath private coaching there, it's, new members. So once they join, if they're a remote student, then they get their 15 minutes. But I should be doing that 15 minutes
ahead of time.
Ahead of time.
Yeah. So I would experiment, right? And this is the beauty of internet marketing, right? All of you have capabilities of creating a bunch of copies of landing pages, right? So hopefully you're not paying a bunch of money for someone else to edit your website, given that you can do all of this on Squarespace or Wix or a dozen other things. If you are paying a bunch of money for someone to make every edit to your site, please reconsider that as an expense, because this stuff's so easy. Like, if you can do Instagram, you can do this, right? It's dirt simple.
Yeah.
So the reason why is because you need to be able to do A/B testing on a lot of different things. And right now is a perfect time. Just have fun with it. Throw it out there and see what happens. To me, I would love to see an example of this page where the CTA is just free call.
Yeah.
Right. Big old button, book a 15-minute assessment with me at your leisure. Here's my schedule. Bam. And then you just have these calls auto scheduling through Zoom or whatever else with a nice integration through Calendly, which is like $10. That's the service that we use. And then you get a chance for people to get to know you. You can ask them a few leading questions because you know what questions to ask. And it's like, okay, well, I think based on what your skill level is and what your goals are, I would recommend you do the bronze level. Or I would recommend we do something custom because you want to play on tour and you're shooting 85 right now. Right. So there's going to be a lot of things that need to be done. This also brings me to one kind of key question, and I'm not sure if you can answer it in the way that I would want per se, just because you're you're running a solo business. But I know that you're good buddies with Cameron McCormick and a lot of other people in Dallas. So this also brings into the example, if you were to create a customized program for somebody that is at that aspirational tour level or college golf level or elite junior golf level or whatever, there's opportunities to collaborate with other professionals during this.
Right.
And that's what CoachNow is really built on. The foundation is that you can bring in a fitness or a mental coach to make this a really cool package. Right. So that might be something to experiment with as well, because you know all the right people.
For sure.
It's like, okay, well, if we're going to do a customized package, then you might have access to other pros.
Yeah.
So maybe talk through what makes you think, like what kind of stirs in your brain when I bring that up.
Yeah, I think that, it's something that I've thought about. And as you said, there's, I've got a great fitness coach, one of the best in the country that I lean on here, that a lot of my students work with. He's not plugged into, all of my programming, but mm-hmm. I've thought over the years, how can I, as a coach, it's obviously we're building a team. We need to build a team around our athlete. And we don't have all the answers, and we know that, but, I haven't kind of figured out the perfect way to integrate them from a payment, mm-hmm. and programming standpoint, other than just referring, hey, go and see such and such.
So there may be an opportunity, and this is just coming to me now. So this is just off the top of my head, but usually this is where all my stuff comes from anyway. Right. It's just conversations like this. Is that anybody on the call, think about the fitness professional or the mental professional you have. Think about tapping into each other's respective lists and doing a webinar just like this and charging for it, right? And saying, hey, who wants to come to a half-day golf school, right? Get 100 people on there from each respective person. In this example, Mike can handle the payments and then just dish it out later to the other coach so that there's not multiple payment gateways. You say register for our online golf academy or online golf school or whatever it is. get a couple hundred people or 100 people on there paying $50, and you and the coach go back and forth, and you have everyone set up in their living rooms with their golf clubs, and you're like walking people through drills, and then the mental coach is talking about something. Anyway, there's a lot of opportunities, I think, during these times where people are hungry for stuff to offer innovative programming. There's no reason why. I mean, all of you can do this.
Yeah, for sure.
So we have gone a long time, Mike. Thank you for being such a good sport here.
Oh, my pleasure.
I think we've answered every question there is. Hopefully this ends up being a really awesome recording for everybody to follow through. But maybe just for the last, 60 seconds to a couple minutes, Mike, is there anything else? Well, let me back up. What advice would you give to anybody that's trying to kind of follow in your footsteps as we close out here? Because we talked a lot about a lot of great stuff.
Sure. First of all, turn the camera on, start making content. If you're not making content right now, don't delay. Don't think it has to be the world's greatest content ever. So turn the camera on while you're teaching. Outside of that, start to build your community. Start with your CoachNow community space. Start putting content in there. Commit to doing it, whether it's daily or every other day. I would say daily.
Yeah.
And again, it can be just have a plan. Don't just start recording and it's Tuesday, I'm about to have a coffee and whatever.
Right.
Like have a solid plan. But just start to engage with your audience, and when they start posting and replying back, keep engaged with them. Outside of that, have a plan to what your business model looks like. And for me, I've gone all in on coaching. For me is just not in-person coaching anymore. It's if you're on a program, I'm not splitting programs to, you're kind of like in this bucket and you're in this bucket. These are my offerings. You get in-person coaching, you get online coaching, and that's it.
Well, I think that particular statement is really important for everyone to hear. You are the director of your model, right? So just choose what you want to do and stick to it. Don't let every potential student that comes your way, totally mess with your model.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's just going to derail a lot of the things. And you're looking for a particular person that fits what you like to do. You're not trying to fit every other person. So be specific and kind of stick to your guns, right, Mike?
Yeah, for sure. And don't get disheartened. If you post something up and it doesn't get a ton of action, it doesn't get a lot of, if you post something in your CoachNow community space, it doesn't get a lot of action. People are still seeing it and appreciating it, and they just don't express it. Right. I have a ton of students that, if I haven't done something in their space, in a reasonable amount of time, they're like, where's my videos, or where's this, right. Or, they want it, even though they don't necessarily let you know it.
Yeah. And we're going to work hard over the next 12 months to provide a lot more analytics and dashboards and things for everybody, because that is very, very true. We're not as far along as other social platforms because we're not one, but we want to, find ways to kind of inch towards those different places for you guys, so that as coaches, you have a better understanding of what's going on. So with that, Mike, you've been an absolute all-star. This has been hopefully mind-blowing for a lot of people, or mind-opening, let's say, and inspirational, because I know it was for me, man. So thanks so much for taking the time and being so honest and open and collaborative.
My pleasure, mate. Thanks for having me on, and good luck to everybody. Stay safe.
All right, man. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks, mate.
See ya. Bye.